I am so happy to be here. My name is Judy Griffin. I'm the Vice President of Supply Chain with the HD Teller Company. And I just couldn't be more excited to be here with you. I am so glad to be sitting here facing you and not facing my own photo. So awkward. So awkward. I am going to ask the folks here with me to introduce themselves and just talk about their current role, their current employer, and just take a minute or two to say how they got from the university to where they are sitting now. And let's start with the esteemed Dr. Purdy.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm that picture. Jill Purdy. I'm actually one of the founding faculty of the business school here at UW Tacoma. So I've been here pretty much literally forever. And I'm actually just returning to my professorship role, having served for 4 years as the Executive Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, which is basically the CAO, Chief Academic Officer of the campus in Tacoma. And so I'm returning from an executive role to something that's maybe a little more fun, which is working with students and folks in the community. I'm also leading an entrepreneurship initiative in collaboration with lots of folks on campus and across the community. I never left the university, but I was an undergraduate management major, and I was always excited about the opportunity to lead people and organize things and make things happen that I thought would do some good in the world. And I felt sort of a calling to teaching, really loved the subject of management, organization theory, organizational behavior, negotiation, collaboration, all of the people stuff in business that is soft, but it's hard, hard to do. So that has just proven to be a really nice springboard to becoming an executive level manager. And I'm also pleased to be stepping away back to my first love.
Hey.
My name is Corey Lux. My picture is actually from my wedding last year. I'm an area manager, so my territory right now is over like Des Moines, Federal, Tacoma, and like Fife area. I've been with the company for 9 years now. Currently in my role, I've been an area manager for about 4 years. Went through the whole management training program at Enterprise, which you basically get the hands-on training to run your own business and get the fundamentals for customer service, marketing, and just driving profits along with sales. Kind of what the career path looks like is you start as a management trainee, you get promoted to an assistant manager, and then you get promoted as a branch manager where you have complete control of that branch and that operation. And then once you find success as a branch manager and you work at a couple different other locations, you can apply to be an area manager, which is my title. And then you overlook multiple branches with the staff at each branch. I actually graduated from University of Washington in Bothell in 2012. Got a business degree. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do at the time, but I knew I wanted to run my own business one day and learn how to drive profits and manage people. And I had an employee or a friend that actually worked for Enterprise at the time, and I was a referral, and she got me a job to work in like the Kirkland Bothell area, and that's where my career started. And I just found a love for just driving revenue and figuring out how to lead a team to hit goals. And I really have a passion of just seeing people move their career forwards and not only grow personally but also professionally at the same time. So I really enjoyed Enterprise so far, and every day I'm learning more and more. So excited to be here with you guys today to share more information.
Hi, I'm Colette Rasmussen, and I guess I graduated in 2015. I had to check that date when I got here because she asked me when I got it. So I did check on my LinkedIn profile because that saves me every single time to my career path and when I did things. My career path has been a little bit different, but I am currently a senior HR analyst for the city of Tacoma. I have been in government HR for about 6 years now. I've been with the city for 6 months. I have come out of state service, so I worked for the state of Washington in multiple different agencies for about 19 years. I started my career path at the Sports Authority. in the cash office, Sports Authority was says Guards and Oshman's, but it's no, I think it's still Guard. I don't even know if it's around anymore. But yeah, so, and then I took some sales floor opportunities and became an operations manager there, did some footwear and apparel work, and then decided to get out of retail and went to Pierce College to get an associate's in paralegal, which I didn't know what that was. Landed in the Attorney General's office as a paralegal. As a paralegal for 14 and a half years, and doing mediation for workers' compensation appeals at the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals. When I decided that I couldn't go anywhere further, I needed to go back to school if I was going to go on. So I went to TCC and got some of my prereqs and then transferred into Milgard in 13 and worked at the AG's office at the same time that I came here and got my undergrad in management leadership and through program, obviously, and really wanted to go back into HR, but was struggling, which maybe we'll get to that, as to how I did that, being in a paralegal position for so long and wanting to go back to what I had done earlier in the private world as an operations and HR and how to get back there. So I couldn't quit the day jobs, so education was what I could come up with. So did that and then went on to get my master's in business and did some side teaching to diversify myself and got some diversity work and got an opportunity with the DSHS as a reasonable accommodation specialist in HR. And that then took me to a couple other agencies, to WATEC and Department of Veterans Affairs, and then now with the city of Tacoma. So those positions with those other agencies have been in HR specialists. So here I am.
So no one path. Everybody's got a different story and mine's different yet. So I graduated here with my bachelor's in business. It wasn't called the Milgard School then, in 01. And Jill was one of my professors. Dare I say favorite. If you have an opportunity, and you sounds like you will, make sure you sign up for her classes. You will not regret it. You can attest. So 01, I went to work at Milgard, the window company. And that's probably where I really got my start in operations and figured out that was really what I liked to do. So I was a distribution manager there and bounced through a lot of different roles over the years, but always in kind of the distribution and logistics world. And that has just evolved over time for sure. Today in my current role, just dumb luck. You know, one of those, keep your LinkedIn profile updated, got a call from a recruiter and just hit the lottery one day, I tell you. We'll come back to that because I think we talk about how in our next question, which I'm about to pose, how did you decide on your career path? Maybe I'll just pick that up and I'll continue my story. So I didn't decide. It wasn't like as a little girl I said, I want to run a warehouse someday. There was no point that I did that. And in fact, when I was in my undergrad here, I was, come on in, you're welcome, jump in. We're out of chairs, but please stand in the back. I was pursuing finance. I wanted to get rich and work on Wall Street. And so I was in finance classes here. I had all my electives were in finance. And I got an internship at the Frank Russell Company, which at that time was in Tacoma. And that was kind of a cool internship. That was kind of the go-to employer in town. And what I discovered was the value in that internship was I discovered I didn't like working in finance. And it was a very valuable internship. It was a great employer, a really good employer, but I just, sitting in the cubicle and that days were long for me. It just was the wrong job for me. It was a great employer, just not the place for me. And that was a really valuable internship. I highly recommend doing as many internships as you can, because you may find out what you want to do, but you may find out what you don't want to do. So very valuable. And I knew I needed to be more hands-on, and I needed to work with people, not numbers. And somehow I needed to find that path. And so I just took that distribution manager job. And the way I fell into that, I don't know if you remember Claudia Burnett, she was a student. She got a job in HR at Milgard. And my advice to you is befriend people that are going into HR because they hire people. And she called me and said, hey, I'm hiring somebody. I think you'd be great. And, went through the interview, and sure enough, and that just kind of, it evolved from there, just different opportunities came up, and I always said yes. When people said, hey, what do you think about this? Do you want to try this? And I wasn't afraid to try something new. And so no grand plan. I just said, that does sound like fun. I think I could figure that out. I was telling Philip earlier, supply chain, it's super transferable. If you know how to run a supply chain for an ice cream shop, you can run a supply chain for an oil and gas company. There's a little bit of a learning curve for sure, but the principles are the same. And so it's been a really good career for me, and it's worked out quite well. Let's go back this way. You want to talk about how you decided on, well, you talked about it a little bit.
Well, as a little girl, it was international business is what I wanted to do. I wanted to speak lots of languages. And I was a foreign exchange student in Japan. So I went to Kyoto for a little while, and wanted to go to the International Language Institute in Bellevue. Well, that didn't exactly pan out how I anticipated my life to go, but I always had a fondness for different languages growing up. And so I ended up as a paralegal.
Perfect sense.
But I'll tell you that was a really, really great move, even though I didn't know what I was doing or why I would like it. But then growing up, everybody told me I was going to be a lawyer, and I knew I didn't want to go to law school. So paralegal seemed like the best next thing. And so I just it kind of fit into what people had always identified who I was to me. But I was lucky that I started at DSHS there doing dependency and termination of parental rights, which was a horrible, hard job to do for Pierce County and Kitsap County. And then they had an opening in the L&I unit, and there was to do mediations. And that was a struggle, in all honesty, because I was 23, maybe 24. And I was at the Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals. I had my docket, my caseload, and my green files, and I had studied my files and my cases, and I had anticipated every single question the judge could ask me as to why the Department of Labor and Industries did what they did. So I prepared, and she wasn't going to ask me a question I did not know. And then I kind of figured it out after a while. I didn't have to be that prepared. And then with that, I really learned some really super valuable skills with how to problem solve, how to listen, how to lead to understand, how to just really think on my feet. And I did that for about 14 years. And those skills that I got from that just helped me to just move forward with other things and do some self-awareness and some thinking as to what I wanted to go from there. But so yeah, I did a lot of diversity work, and that's kind of what brought me over into the HR side, back into HR. That transitioned me over back into HR was diversity and inclusion work that I did with the disability side of that. So yeah, so that's the reasonable accommodation piece that I now have. I sit in the disability leave management office for the city of Tacoma right now. as a senior analyst, and I do the reasonable accommodation process, which is a little bit transferable from Allen workers' compensations, mediation type stuff. It's still along the lines of disability and that conversation and how to resolve problems, work with business. And it's that liaison between that facilitation of this is the situation, this is the business need, can we find an effective accommodation that works for both sides? And if not, how do we move forward from that, and being able to entertain those conversations? So a lot of those skills, I think, came from just that progression of what the different steps of my career that I took, and then the education and all the papers that I might have had to write for somebody. But yeah, so I guess how I decided on that, I just kind of fell into it in a way. But I always knew I liked people. I really enjoyed the HR side, the operations side when I was in retail. But I just honestly, I couldn't be a single mother doing retail hours at the time. I needed something that was more the 9 to 5 so paralegal world, here I came. But I got back to what I truly loved, and that was the HR side, which is really fascinating to me when I do talk to, speaking of change management and stuff that I did with you earlier, all of that really just kind of like helps with moving you forward, right? And having, propelling you into the next area. So
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I didn't go to college to go rent cars. So, but I quickly realized enterprise was so much more. I instantly fell in love with the people. Everyone that I was engaged with at my branches were just so relatable, and everyone wanted to see you grow individually and move your career forward. And then I learned that enterprise is a promote from within company. So everyone in enterprise knows what you're going through at every single moment of the day, and you can reach out to people and get advice and get assistance when you are hitting struggles or challenges. They all want to see you move your career forward and grow individually. As you start as a management trainee, you really get the hands-on training to perform customer service, sales, marketing, and make an impact on just how the business operates. And then as you move through the management training program and you get into those assistant manager and those branch manager titles, that's where you shift a little bit into more of people management, and you are now a manager of your people and your employees. And how can you help them figure out how to drive customer service, or how can you teach them the skills to go out marketing to our accounts to be able to grow our business, or how can you teach them to drive profits and save costs? So you really start to develop a team and a family of people that you will branch off with and network and have people alongside you at different branches or different departments that you kind of move up the system with. And then in my title as area manager, it's almost all employee management. I don't necessarily rent cars as much as the rest of the team to customers, but I help them with things that they need in order to be more customer service friendly, or get skills in the marketplace, or how to drive profits on each rental that they do. And I'm more of a support for the employees there to move their careers forward so they could accomplish their goals. And I also help identify their skill sets that might best suit the business. So just because they start as a management trainee doesn't mean they have to follow down the rental side of it. They could branch off to different divisions within the company. So that could be car sales, that could be fleet management, that could be going into the HR field of things, that could go into risk management. It's just pretty much anything you could think of for a business. Enterprise branches out from that management training level, and we fill those positions internally. And that's why we have so much opportunity to hire new people, is because we're constantly promoting and constantly getting people filled in different roles. And the business is just growing year after year after year, and the demand for cars hasn't stopped. Even during the pandemic, we had a brief moment of business slowing down, but it's bounced back even stronger. So we're opening up new locations across the world in different countries. I think we have enterprise locations in over 100 countries right now, which is pretty cool to see our brand just continue to grow. So a lot of opportunity, and we could find a fit for almost any person. Like, and that's the cool thing about when you join enterprise. It's like, we'll find your best fit, and it doesn't have to be down the daily rental side. It could be any part of the business.
My story has some similarities to both Judy and Colette. Interestingly, I was a management major in college, and I did an internship with the bank, and actually summer job, and decided banking wasn't an industry that was super exciting for me. And I liked parts of it, but not all of it. So I knew I didn't want to go in that direction, but honestly, graduating from college, no clue, right? Just kind of, I don't know what I want to do. I worked in a law firm. I was not a formal qualified paralegal, but did a lot of the same kind of work. And it was a nice sort of small size firm that had a lot of lines of business and let me explore, which was fun. But I realized that I didn't really want to pursue that path either. So a lot of the story is about this, no, I don't know. But then we moved a little bit closer to something that I was excited about because I had, and probably to this day, still have pretty mad skills when it comes to typing and creating visual graphic things and using computers. And in the time when I was that age, those weren't as common skills as they are today. Like people weren't on their phones doing this with their thumbs, right? So I got hired by a lady who was extremely well connected in the area, and she had started her own basically HR firm. So she helped people prepare their resume, she helped them find jobs, she was a placement firm. And as I said, she was incredibly well connected and knew everyone and had decided that this was what she wanted to do. So it was stressful working for her. She was a very demanding employer, but that was good because it brought me up a level. But after I had been there for a while, she offered for me to become a partner in the business, which was kind of the first time I knew that she actually liked and valued my work. So I was thinking, well, maybe this isn't a good situation if I'm working for someone who's in HR and maybe they don't make me feel very valued as an employee. But it gave me the hint to push me in that direction of thinking about how many conversations I had had growing up with people and through college and everything about how important it is that you find the right thing for you at work in order to be motivated, and how important it was for me as a kid to see if my parents were happy or unhappy at work and what were the things that drove that. And I also realized that I had spent a lot of my life as a teacher, as a tutor. I taught English as a second language and just as a volunteer kind of along the way. And I thought, this is interesting. I see that I want to do this human management kind of stuff, but I also really love to teach. And that's what kind of got me to graduate school and getting a doctorate in management and organization. And leading through the pathway, coming to this school as a founding faculty member, believe me, there are not very many opportunities to create a new business school from the ground up. And it really appealed to my entrepreneurial side, right? It's cool, build something new. Because the one thing I didn't want to go do was go get hired at a university and then teach the same 3 classes for the next 30 years. That sounded like fate worse than death, right? So the reason I have stayed here so long is because every couple of years I've had a new role, a new responsibility, something to build, something new to do. And the interesting thing about higher education is, as a knowledge-driven business, like a lot of businesses that are really out there in the tech sector and other sectors, it's all about the human capital, right? 90+% of our operating expense is salaries, right? We don't have an inventory. We're not managing the kinds of things that Judy manages in her supply chain work. So it really is all about bringing out the best in people. And I love doing that as an educator, but it was really a privilege and a joy to do that when working with faculty and staff on the campus as well. So it kind of was a weird pathway and some false starts, but I feel the same way Corey does. Like the opportunity to grow and do different things is really what makes me excited. And if you find a place where that works for you, then it might be a place you want to stay. It doesn't have to be. Lots of people move around to find those exciting opportunities, but as you become successful, motivation comes from different places. You're maybe not motivated by the paycheck, or you're not motivated by, how convenient the commute is or whatever. You become motivated by different things, and finding those things that bring you joy and get you excited where you want to get out of bed in the morning and go to work, as opposed to watch TikTok videos. This is a really important thing in life. You can still watch these TikTok videos, not
The kitties.
The puppies.
the dances. Come on.
All right, my next question is about what challenges that you might have encountered that kind of might have threatened to derail you or made the path a little harder. I know for me, at one point I was working at Cardinal Health. I was an operations manager and I realized I really wanted the director of operations role. And it pretty much required a master's degree. And right now, all of you could go get a job, almost any dang job you want, in about 10 minutes. There are not enough employees out there. But that will change and employers will get picky. And that day will come back where employers say, nope, you must have a degree, or you must have 5 years experience, or you must have this, where they have a little more power and can pick and choose. And at this particular time in the world, it was a time when employers said, nope, you must have a degree. And I said, you know what, I am gonna go back to school and get an MBA. And so I came back here and it was really hard because at the time I had a son, he was, I don't know, maybe 12, you know, working, going to school, having a child. If any of you are doing that, it's super hard. So that was a big challenge. And it took me about 100 years to get my MBA. I think it's a tier program. I think it took me 4 years. But the advantage of that is talk about networking. I know a lot of people with MBAs because I know 4 different years of graduating MBAs. So there's a lot of folks I can call. So there is an advantage there. But it was a big challenge. Going to school once you have kids is difficult. So if you don't have kids, hurry up, get that done before you have kids. How about you, Colette? Any big challenges?
Yeah, I would say my biggest challenge was to get to where I am today. Was really diversifying who I was and really being able to articulate who I am. You know, we always in school were like, oh, write about your personal mission statement and what you want and who you are and your values and your shared values with others. And I could do those assignments, but I really had to figure out like, who am I? You know, and what do I really, really want? And there's some value to those assignments. There really is. And then just really being able to learn outside of the brick and mortar, how to implement that and how to be comfortable around other people. Because a big hang up for me was, oh, I can't talk to them. They're the CEO or they're this big manager. I can't go have that conversation with them. I'm like, no, I can. They're just another person just like me. They just happen to sit at that desk. So it was not limiting myself and figuring out how to allow myself to sit at the table. And then think about it like, I remember I worked downtown Tacoma at the Attorney General's office, and I would walk here on my lunch break and I would take a 2-hour class and then I would go back and work an extra hour in the evening. And I was listening to, I don't want to promote a book, but in my ear, I was listening to a book called Lean In. And Sandra, I don't even know if I know the name anymore. Cheryl Sandberg.
That's a great one.
And I was listening to that book in my AirPods because I wasn't reading any more books at that time because I was reading enough books. So I audio listened to fun books, and you know, people might say that, oh, that's not a fun book, but it really helped me to like understand like how to just be okay with where I am and not be scared to have conversations with people. And I think my time here helped me put those pieces together and be able to just get real with who I am and myself and where I want to be and who people really are and get over the fear. And just be okay with networking and where I am in my life and where I'm going. So there were some personal challenges with that. that I had to overcome. And then I had some career challenges, like being redded in a position, being only seen as this thing or this job, because that's the only thing that you've ever done here. So we can't move you over here. And then taking the risk to go, okay, well, if you're not going to give me what I want, and I've gone to school now and I'm not quitting my day job, and I'm proven that I can do this, then I need to take a leap of faith, right? So how do I do that while supporting myself, my family, and all this other things? And just taking some risk and calculated risk. And so I had to do a little bit of that, and then feel some waters out and take a few more calculated risks and move forward. And so, but in order to do that, I had to like diversify my resume, if you will. Like, my resume was 14 years as a paralegal, and that's not where I wanted to end my career. I had 40 more years to work, and I don't just always want to do this one thing with only a wage that stops right here. And how do I get up here? And they're saying I can't, and they won't. And how do I bump through that ceiling? And it was like, okay, well, diversifying my resume. And I took opportunities. They say sit on committees, do committee work, do volunteer work. Okay, yeah, I've done all that. You're still saying that's not enough. So am I just sitting on this committee because you need somebody to be on this committee, or is it really going to get me there? Because I don't think it's going to get me there. And so it was taking some outside. So I started teaching at night while getting my master's, and I landed into teaching finance and accounting.
That's awesome. Good.
I did really well at school here, so it worked there where I was teaching. And yeah, so I became a finance and accounting teacher for a year and a half while getting my MBA. And then I added that to my resume because I could say, well, for a year and a half, I did this, and I was able to, and then being able to speak to the transferable skills, right? And well, we need a supervisor. Well, I've supervised a classroom, right? I manage their workload, right? So it's just, how do you take those transferable skills, apply them to what you did in a way that is meaningful for the person who's sitting on the other side of the table, having that conversation with you. And that just took practice and just getting real honest with where I wanted to go and how can I hate to say it, manipulate the situation to get to where I wanted to go. And in a positive manipulation way.
That's called a career management. Spin on.
That's good. Nice. Thanks. Corey, how about a challenge for you?
Yeah, so some challenges that I was faced with, and I think a lot of young managers are faced with, is being able to tailor your communication style to a diverse amount of employees or individuals and be able to change your management style to each one. Jill hit on this a little bit, but everyone's motivated and driven a different way, right? And those motivating factors can change over time. So maybe your employees get hired on for a specific goal in mind, but in a year goes by, that goal they may be achieved or it shifts. You got to be able to build on those personal relationships to be able to actually figure out what your employees are driven by and why they chose this job and what they're working towards. And once you build that personal relationship, then you can start using those motivating factors to help them in their professional setting and help them see maybe little short-term goals that could accumulate to the bigger goal at the end of the day. So I think that was something that I learned as I progressed through the management program, is how to have those conversations. And we do certain things where we meet with our employees every month, and we call them 4x4s, where you sit down and you talk about 4 strengths and 4 areas of opportunities. And you have just an open, candid conversation with your employees and just figure out if what they're working on now is aligning with their goals that they're trying to achieve and where they fit into the bigger picture of things. So that's kind of like the challenges I think I was faced with in the management program. I think kind of what you were talking about, the career path stuff, is that there are going to be these hurdles to move your career forward. And with enterprise, it's you get promoted off performance. So you will interview against other employees that are similar in your career. And sometimes you might not get the position you threw for. So you got to be resilient and face that adversity and figure out why you didn't get the position. What did the other employee maybe have that you didn't have? And how do you take that opportunity and build on it and make it a strength so the next time you go in the interview, you can crush it and get that promotion that you want. So I think those are the 2 challenges that I think I was faced with, that I think a lot of people will face with in their careers, starting in the management programs.
I would say the biggest challenge that I faced was being a young woman in a field where people didn't expect to see a young woman. Unfortunately, I've aged out of the young problem so much. But I graduated from college pretty young, and the graduate program I went to, there were 2 women in the department of like 30 people who were professors that were teaching me. And fortunately, I was able to be mentored by one of them who is still a very good friend of mine today. And a colleague with whom I published a book a few years ago. So like great, huge, important relationship in my life after my parents, probably the most influential adult in my life. So I'm extremely grateful for that. But saw a lot of young women, people of color, people who were different in some way, struggling, right? Sometimes the struggle was internal with the idea of, can I do this? And imposter syndrome is very real, right? But even if you're a pretty confident person, if people keep treating you as if you're less than, you can start to believe you're less than, or you simply may not feel that your performance is being judged in the same way as everyone else's because there's not a good system in place, like Corey described. So figuring out how to manage that, and whether it's through mentorship, developing yourself so that you have the confidence to overcome it and get past it. I think I had been a professor here for a few years, and I joined a committee, and people thought I was a student. I was like, how can I bring a legitimate voice to this committee of professors when people came in with the automatic assumption that I was young and naive and, wasn't ready. So I think lots of people will face that. And you just have to power through it. But it really helps if you've built that network of other people who've experienced similar challenges. If you have a family or friends that back you up and tell you, you got this, you can do this. Believe in yourself. Sometimes that self-motivation is a really big thing. It's not that I haven't had other obstacles, certainly, but I think that I wanted to put that one out there because I think it's a really important one that lots of people experience. And it's real.
I piggyback off of that a little bit because when I was in my early 20s and I was just started up at the Attorney General's office, maybe 24, I think it was, I went into a unit and I had 2 coworkers. We were the same team until I left. So for 15 years, we were the same team. And one of them was 10 years older than me. And the other one was 20 years older than me. And I was the new kid, right? And I was dubbed kiddo. And so I would get called by my teammates, like they're my mom and dad. And then I walked down, and then one of them would always call me kiddo. And I was probably then in my mid-30s. And I finally stopped in the hall and I turned around and I said, you're going to have to just stop calling me kiddo. Because, but it was just really, getting comfortable with, like, it had bugged me for years and years. It stunted my growth because people saw me as a young person and, a kid who doesn't know anything or isn't, able to be there and not challenged because you're the young one or whatever. And I really had to take a step and say, no, you need to stop. And it did, it stopped. And it was only a one-time conversation that I had to have, but I definitely did need to call it out.
Very good. You can dazzle people with your performance, but sometimes you have to leap over that hurdle of who they think you are in order for them to see how you can shine.
I could probably tell you 100 funny stories. A girl running a warehouse. Yeah.
It's like, question, do you want to take questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question for the panel. Maybe if you're talking about your challenges, so one challenge I have that maybe you could help with is, so I'm in a management role now, and kind of when you're not in management, it's easy that you focus on your technical work or, what task you're on. But now, so I'm the operations supervisor of like a facility at the Port of Tacoma. And I have like 11 guys that report to me. And then I'm understanding that there's like a maintenance supervisor and a plant engineer. And basically their roles are just to support me, but they don't work for me.
Right.
They work for my boss. But my boss doesn't really have, he's not, so my role, I need their help, right? They're there to support operations. to complete my tasks. And they're like to run the plant and make production and do all that thing. But my boss, even though they report to him, he wants the plant to run. The plant running isn't his immediate things, right? He's working on like HR, union negotiations, making the client happy. When do they want to start? So I'm kind of learning it now, but it's just a recent thing happening because now that our plant's running, I really need these people's support. How do you manage people that are there to support you, but they don't work for you?
I was gonna say, like, kind of what I was talking about is building that personal relationship with those individuals and getting to know who they are individually and maybe some of their goals that they have within the company and also on the personal side, and maybe some hobbies and things they like to do so you can connect with them on that level. And once they understand who you are as a person, and you build that relationship and that bond, they're gonna be willing to help you. And I think another thing to think about too is just how can you align your goals with the company with theirs? And how can you guys work to the same common goal? And just figuring out what they are driven and motivated by, kind of like what I talked about.
Yeah.
I would concur with that. So leading with influence when you don't have any actual power over them.
Yeah.
Sitting down and helping them understand what you're trying to achieve and trying to figure out what they're trying to achieve. And it might be the exact same thing. Where do your goals align? Do they conflict or are they the same?
That's kind of the path that I moved. So what I have, so I'm the youngest, right? And then the people are older than me and they have lots of technical skills, but then I figure out why we have managers is because somebody's got to hold somebody accountable, and somebody might be really technical, but like at the end of the day, hey, we need these drawings updated. And you're like helping them as like their calendar, right? Like, yeah, this is the deadline. So what I've done is kind of that path. We're using the engineer to help me influence. But I guess what you're saying is more of that, like a meeting, like, hey, this is why we need to do these things and get on the same path and how it will help all of us.
Yeah, like really, do they know what your goal is? And do you know what their goal is?
No, I guess not. We haven't started.
Yeah,
That's what we're trying to
I would
work
tag
on.
on to that communication.
Yeah,
Communication is key for almost everything. And you're gonna flex and adapt how you communicate depending on who's in the room or who's not, or who's around your table or who's not, or what if you, yeah, it's just gonna change. So, but having super good communication skills, I think is ideal, and being able to change those and being honest and transparent with them and saying, hey, I get it that this is our situation, but we need to take this situation that we are put in and this is where we're going with it. And this is my goals and these are your goals, and how do we come together and how do we work collaboratively, right?
yeah.
But just really, I think transparency, honesty, communication that is authentic and genuine and consistent. Not a one-time shot where like, we're gonna get this going, right, team? And then all of a sudden you're falling off the side and you're like, oh yeah, well, yeah, we're gonna get this going, right? No, consistent, genuine communication.
I kind of think back to some employees that work with us that don't necessarily have the same goals, but they, like, for instance, like our car detailers, they clean our cars, but their goals aren't aligned with what we're doing in the customer facing side. So I just think of the times where I've had individuals that was harder to kind of align to get them motivated to do their job to help with my job, right? And I found that doing stuff maybe outside of work, like taking them out to lunch or going to do something fun that they enjoy, you build that personal side of the relationship, which helps with it. And then you also kind of answered your own question, is explain the why. Like sometimes we just ask them to do something, and in our heads, we know why it's important and why we need it done, but to them, maybe they don't see the bigger picture and why it's important. So that was my suggestion as well.
I would add one little thing, which is to say, find an opportunity to go to bat for them, even if it doesn't do you any good. You have a mutual boss, you might be able to put in a good word or say something that's influential that helps make their life easier. People will reciprocate, especially if you've done the things to build the relationship in the community.
That's kind of the path I'm taking now. So like our boss will like just micromanage and really bug the maintenance supervisor, because what I'm trying to get is the maintenance supervisor, he's never been a manager, he's been a lead mechanic. So he knows more about maintenance, so it's hard to approach him because it's like, I don't know about maintenance and I'm trying to help him do his job, but what I'm helping him with is stuff that I know more about than he does, like the communication aspect of the reason that you're getting hounded by our boss every day is because you send out nothing of what the status of the work orders are or where we at. You know it internally, but the rest of the team doesn't know. So I guess that's what you're saying is like, say, so if we do this scheduling thing and have these communications of the status of where we are on your work. You explain to everyone what you are and where you are at your work, then the boss isn't gonna bug you as much because you can just go read his email.
And when they do that, the positive recognition goes a long way. When you recognize that they did a good job and you do that out loud in front of people, they see that and other people want to follow. So that's a good way to get them kind of bought in as well, as that positive recognition. Because it's so easy to be able to like see something that's wrong and be able to try to correct it. But it's like when they do something right, that positive recognition can get everyone motivated at the same page.
I have never helped someone in my career in a way that has come back to hurt me, where they got promoted ahead of me or anything like that. Every time I've helped someone or gone to bat for someone, it's benefited me too, even if I didn't expect it, and even if it came 5 years later. Right? So I think being generous matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it does come 5 years later and you're like, wait a minute. And then you're like, in the moment, you're like, I don't understand. But then 5 years later, you're like, I get it.
Sure.
My question is for Colette, actually. Do you think a lot of people miss opportunities in the government chasing after the private sector? Because I feel like just with like conversations with my peers, I feel like government jobs and sectors rarely come up. But I feel like the government is so expansive and there's so many opportunities and so many departments. So
I would almost take that both ways. Because sometimes I have felt like I have missed opportunities in the private sector because I've been 20 years with the government, right? So I think it could go both ways. There's some benefits to work in government. There are some really good opportunities. It's not gonna be your lucrative pay, but you're gonna find potentially opportunities and stabilities, pension plans that may not exist in the private sector. And I have 401ks in the private sector. We still have pension plans in government. So, it just depends on, again, it's that calculated risk. Like, do you want to focus on stability and long-term retirement type options? Or do you want maybe to make the more money and invest in your own retirement options? I mean, it's really a personal choice, but yeah, I do think that there are a lot of, I'll tell you, careers.wa.gov. But if you go to government jobs, that'll get you to state, local, county, city. And there is a lot of jobs. They're a little behind in the times with like the qualifications because city or government moves a little slower than the private sector, right? So when we're talking about like requirements and things like that, you may have had to have a requirement for a BA degree. For the specific job class where maybe private has moved away from having that requirement. So they've moved a little quicker. They respond a little bit faster. But yeah, I don't think people really go to look for government jobs as often. But there's a lot of good opportunities. There's a lot of good learning opportunities there. And you could take the learning from government jobs and apply it out. Yeah.
What are some times throughout your careers where you were trying to make effective change or something and you received pushback or resistance, whether it be from, as a term thrown around a lot lately, toxic leadership or bad leadership? How did you navigate or overcome those challenges?
That's a great question.
I'm kind of thinking back to like maybe like a manager that I didn't really connect with, right? Like you didn't see eye to eye on things. And I think it's easy to personally just like internally just hold that in and just kind of go to your job and just do your duties, but not necessarily be happy with the way things are being led. And I think the best thing that I ever did was ask my manager to talk outside of work. And I just was very transparent on the way I felt. And our level of communication got so much stronger because they identified some things that they were doing that impacted my career and my performance. And I was actually not performing as well as I could be because of that management style. And the communication just got so much better that I was just open and honest with it. And yeah, it's going to be awkward and it's going to be really hard to do. But looking back on it, it was the best thing I did.
I would say COVID has brought a lot, right, with how we did work. And that right there was a lot of change management. How are we going to continue working in the capacity that we were working in? How are we going to keep business going in the way that we're used to it going? And that was constant change management, if you will. Laws were changing, there were proclamations that were being pushed out, people were having their own personal situations that were impacting their work situations. And we had to write new policies. Every time a law gets updated, there's a new policy that has to be updated. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and so quick change management, a lot of resistance from individuals with their own personal thoughts and beliefs. And then there's the business side, this is how we're doing business. So how do we move business forward and integrate that with people's own personal thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about situations that are going on around us too, and responding to not only our work environment, but our personal social environment. I think what really helped with a lot of that, I was on the front end of that being in HR, keeping business moving forward, was going back to your change management skills and focusing on the beginning as to understanding, like, what is it like, and providing that awareness, the knowledge and the awareness around what is our current situation, what is it, what do we need to do, what is our outcome, how do we get there, what do we need, and who's gonna bring us forward, who are our resistors, who are going to be our champions. Yes, there you go, change management professor, you know, and just really honing into the process, right? And the thing that I learned in the leadership class, she'll know the name of the professor, but Nielsen, I want to say.
Oh, Greg Nelson, he's amazing.
Is
Write that down. Get out.
is really focusing on when things get super crazy and chaotic, you can't really manage change that way, right? So you have to go down to the bullet points, informational. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, and really get into the process of it. This is what we need to do first. And communicating that process out so that people understand and they're aware. They might not like it, but at least they know and they're aware, so that when you're ready to implement that change on your go live time, okay, now we're ready to implement. We know why, we're aware of it, we've made the plan, and now we need to implement it and then circle it back and make those challenges. But communicating all of the time where you are, their steps, everybody's on board, everybody's on the same page, and you're really building that unit forward. With the understanding, like, it's not going to be perfect. We're not going to be making always the perfect decisions. It's not always going to work out the way that we want it to. Some people are going to be upset. Some people are going to be really happy. And then, but looking back and learning from that, and how do we change that next time? I just got off a call this morning. I was in here an hour before and had, process improvement. Great. That's a great process improvement. How do we do that for next time? Continue and leading with that conversation. It didn't work out the way that we wanted it to this time, but how do we do it better next time? And if you're honest with that person and say, look, I learned a lot from this conversation with you, and next time we're going to do it differently. And we're going to implement what I just heard from you, because that was a great idea.
I could take a little bit different spin on the toxic leadership question, because it's a little different when you're the boss of the toxic leader.
That's true.
Right?
That is true.
So managing the toxic leader as a direct report presents a lot of challenges, and most organizations discourage you going around your manager to complain about your manager. So it's challenging as an employee, and sometimes you can work with a one-on-one strategy and working with the person or confronting them or whatever. And sometimes that doesn't fix the problem. And so how do you become aware that that potentially toxic leader is being toxic and creating a lot of challenges in a unit? And then how do you provide social support for the people who are living under it as you go through the HR processes to typically counsel that person to try to guide them to improve before you can let them go, which is certainly true in government and is often true in the private sector too, because it's a CYA legal strategy, right? You don't just dump somebody because 4 people complained. It doesn't work that way. So the idea of building social support within the direct reports and helping them understand that even if you can't talk about a private matter that is an HR or legal process, that their concerns have been heard regarding a toxic leader, and that action is being taken. That's a big management challenge to try to communicate that. But I think that's, as you move up the ranks, you certainly have a lot of responsibility, not just for your direct reports. And as an area manager, you probably know things about every single person that reports to the people that report to the people that report to
I
you.
lean heavily on the HR side of it.
It's really important to do. So, yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. And I will say the other thing is just depending on the situation and knowing yourself, sometimes the best strategy is just get out, right? Just exit. Because if you're not super motivated, or this person is just making your life miserable and you can't envision enjoying the work even if that person is gone.
I've jumped ship a couple of times.
And it's usually a person, and the number one reason that people love their job is their direct supervisor. The number one reason people leave their job is their direct supervisor, right? So that relationship is incredibly important.
Sometimes it's funny too, because you're thinking like, I'm jumping ship because of this situation, and you're thinking about what are you gonna do, and then you realize, no, that decision that I made was really good.
Vote with your feet.
So how do you recommend jumping ship for somebody who's been loyal to a company? So I've been with my company for 17 years and I've kind of grown up, I've done different jobs, but and then you hear the grass isn't greener on the other
It
side,
isn't always,
right?
and that's a calculated risk.
And then you hear, well, it's greener where you water it, right? So I love this, like diversify your resume and your experience, and then networking. This is why I've joined the MBA program. But like that leap of faith and like what, I guess what recommendations would you have for that first step, right? As to
Yeah, I've done it a few times. I've always done a calculated move. Like I wouldn't go lower than where I was. That was my personal one.
Yeah.
My personal one was, okay, if I'm gonna move, I'm only gonna take a lateral move a couple of times. After that, it's gonna be a promotional.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go down.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna stay where I am or go up. So there's some personal piece to it that you have to self-internal, for your own self and your own situation. But I would say just knowing what it is that you want and what's important to you. Is the first thing I can think of.
Do you feel like there's more to learn where you are?
No.
And I would say, if you're a person that wants to learn more.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
kind of
guess-
owe it to yourself.
Yeah, so I just I uploaded a LinkedIn like a month ago, and I'm looking at others and they're just amazing, right? People have great creative insight to these, and for me, it's like, do I reach out to somebody to help build my resume? Are all those beneficial
The
to?
Success Center would love to help you with that. I highly recommend
There we
them.
Yeah, just like, those first steps to like making those moves. It's like, I have all these great ideas and this is all like excites me, but then I'm like, I'm so loyal. And I'm like,
Would I'm sure your employer, if you would want the best for you.
no, they definitely do. And they've definitely been the reason why, I decided to make this change in the first place. But
And you
just
can
being
be
invested, retirement, you're looking at all the things. And then like you said, the lateral versus the calculated, and it's like,
So I was with the state for 19 years and I got a call from the city in January. So I've been with the city for 6 months and they were like, will you come over? And it was because, okay, this was a funny story actually. So I was a reasonable accommodation specialist with the state. And I had thought, well, let me just see if I could go apply for the city of Tacoma. I didn't know if I was ready for it or not. And I tried it. I was like at the top of their pick, not their pick. And I was on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is the state's FYI, state HR people, that is their community. That's their Facebook. That's their Facebook and that's their TikTok. So the state HR community is on Facebook, or excuse me, is on their LinkedIn Facebook. It is the Facebook. So yes, that is where they are. FYI. But I had connected with, after I didn't get selected for the position, not during the recruitment period, did I did I connect with somebody on LinkedIn who was going to interview me. But after I wasn't selected, I went back to the people that interviewed me and I just sent them a connection. That's all I did to LinkedIn. So Shelby Fritz, who I'm sitting in for today,
Who graduated from this program.
who graduated from this program, and she asked if I was sitting here for her today. She interviewed me 3 years ago. And then in January, she put on the same position. And I was perfectly fine where I was. I was perfectly fine. And all I did was I liked it. And okay, yeah, because that's what we do with the state HR is we reshare because that means it gets out there where people see it. If you like it, then you're your community, and so it's let's just doing a nice thing. Okay, forward share. It's a weekend, and she sent me a message on a Sunday morning and asked me if I was interested and that she had remembered interviewing me. And I was honest with her and I said, well, I'm really not sure. I like where I am. I have some concerns about moving. I've been here for 19 years. My retirement, my pension with the state and yada yada. And I said, I'm open to having a conversation with you about my concerns with leaving, but I'm really not sure if it's something I want to do. So she set up an appointment with me on a Monday morning, that next Monday morning, and I talked very candidly with her for 45 minutes. Like, this is I make this much vacation per month. I make, and this is where I'm working. This is how I'm doing it. And she candidly talked with me, and I applied for it. I did go through the competitive process, and it was grueling. But I made the leap of faith to leave all of my accrued time and my pension. Well, there was some marrying it up with the city, but I did leave a lot behind, and I cashed out a lot, and I moved, and I could not be more happier. Not to say I'm not sitting up here telling y'all quit your job. Okay. Because there was 14 years where I was like, I'm not quitting my day job while I go to school. I'm not going to quit my day job. It's the opportunity when it presents itself, and are you ready?
Right. I will say that an awful lot of people find their next job through the people that they work with who are not in their current employer organization. So vendors, customers, people who are just passing through that are somehow connected to your business. That is a really, really common way for people to get recruited. I don't know how strongly you feel about that network, but that could be a great opportunity for people who actually know you. And that, as you can hear in all these stories, like the personal connections matter, knowing people, having people know you, and having a reputation for being a good communicator, for having integrity, for being a hard worker, and all those things goes a really long way. Because you can train for skills, but if somebody isn't going to be a good person and be a good employee, you really don't want them.
And you all are gonna hire people eventually, and you may hire each other. So when you're in group projects together.
Thank you, good play.
Truth to that.
Don't be a lame group member. Nobody likes that.
There is definite truth to that.
Don't be a bad team member. You're gonna do a lot of group work here.
And we see it to this day for folks who graduated in the early 2000s are now these managers and vice presidents and presidents, and they are looking for folks that are good folks. And who do they ask? Their friends from school. Not necessarily to hire them, but who do you know, or who do you have, or what?
Well, I'm sitting here because Shelby knew that I graduated from here. And so when she was interviewing me, we had, there was this little husky dog thing going on a little bit. And so I would have never been sitting here today with you all if she didn't have the situation that happened to her recently, which made it to where she couldn't be here and then not graduate, if I had not gone to school, I really wouldn't be sitting here. But because of that connection with her and the opportunity that she had, and then she didn't have, and then she's like, well, who do I have? She's like, I'll send Colette. And so it's who you know, where you are, right place. Sometimes it's timing.
Yeah.
I've worked with people from here. I'm still in touch with a ton of people that I graduated with. It's really intriguing. Yeah, look around. You're gonna know these people for a while.
One of our questions, like a recommendation, is exactly what I was gonna say is networking. Like take the time to network with everyone here. That's something that I wish I would have done more when I was in school. Looking back at it, it's like these connections could be people that you will work with or work for the rest of your lives. You just never know. So it's always great to have those network and those connections.
the Success Center, take advantage of that. Get help with a resume, get help with your LinkedIn. Go to the different like this. They put on a lot of events throughout the year. Go to all of the career fairs that they put on. They bring in a lot of speakers. It's really good. There's a lot of events on campus. In fact, all the different programs bring in different speakers. Take advantage of that. It's hard because you're so busy with classes, but there's a lot of cool events on campus. Take the time to take advantage of that.
There are a lot of opportunities. Now I'm plugging my own school, but what are you gonna do? A lot of opportunities for both undergraduates and graduates to participate in case competitions or business plan competitions or startup pitches. And there are all these things that happen that are sort of extracurricular that often turn out to be the most impactful thing. And you get to know those people really well if you're working with them on a business idea or on a case competition, and it's above and beyond your schoolwork, but it can be the big. I vividly remember doing a case competition with people that I didn't know very well when I was an undergraduate student, and it was a huge and wonderful experience. And we won our local round. We got to travel to Atlanta and do it again, and it was like this amazing learning experience on so many levels. So I hope people can find the time as best they can to take advantage of those kind of things too.
There's a connection to like Shelby and I knew of each other, but because we both went to the school, there's this like underlying connection that we have, even though we didn't go with the same year, like I think it was like 12 years apart from each other, but still we went to the same school. And so there's like this underlying camaraderie, if you will, because it's not just UW, it's UW-T, right?
Very different.
So
UW is pretty close in that too.
but I'm a Tacoma girl, so. But I share them. But there's a connection to them, and not the small ones, and so take advantage of that.
You should not be afraid to ask for help too. People want to help students. We
So much.
want you
So
to
true.
succeed. We're going to be old. You have to take care of us. We want you have to do well. Reach out to people on LinkedIn and just say, hey, you're in a field that I'm really interested in. Do you have time for a phone call to tell me more about this thing? I am currently a student. If you do that 10 years from now, you're just creepy. As a student, I don't totally get away with that. Okay, you do it.
Because I still do that today.
It's not creepy at all.
I mean.
As a student, you can totally pull that off if people want to help you. Yeah, don't hesitate to
I would do
connect
it in
with
your
people.
career too, after as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make it a continual practice.
Network. It's painful.
There is a deputy attorney general, assistant attorney general, who I won't name her name, but she's still there. And I worked with her through some diversity projects, and I ended up having her manager ended up coming down to the Tacoma AG's office to head it for a very short time. And I was in the hallway and I knew of this lady and I knew of this lady, and I was overhearing conversations because that's what you do back then. And she had said, oh yeah, so-and-so had told me that she never says no to an opportunity. And I was like, huh. And I've watched her like move all the way up and do her thing, and she's so amazing. And I was like, huh. And this lady's like, yeah, she just always figures out how she's gonna do it. And she never says no. And I was like, huh. So I tried it and I was like, yep. Next thing you know, I'm here and I'm like, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And it's just like never saying no to an opportunity. It was super fruitful for me just to keep that in the back of my mind, like, no, I'm not gonna say no. I'll figure it out. I'm not gonna say no, I'll figure it out. I'll reprioritize this, I'll reprioritize that. Maybe I'll shuffle this around, shuffle that around. I'll figure out how to be more efficient with what I'm doing. But, try not to lead with no, because there's oftentimes it's not as in depth as you may have thought it would have been, or it didn't really take as much time as you thought it would have been. But
How hard could it be? right?
Figure it out, right?
No,
YouTube
yeah.
it. That was funny. That was not real. Yeah, that was just a.
That can sound pretty intimidating, especially if you're introverted.
Right.
Right, so think about that. I mean, know yourself, know your personality, and you may want to say yes, but not right now to some
Exactly.
activities,
Yeah.
because you do have to take care of yourself and
Yeah.
recharge yourself. Just know yourself is so
Yeah.
important. And to do
Absolutely.
the things that take care of you, but oftentimes you can say yes, and I'd like to invite this person to help also expand the love there, because that can help you conserve your time and energy and actually be even more productive, especially if you've gone and built those good relationships and you know you're inviting in another partner. who
I'll
might
do
be
that and I'll
good.
delegate it.
Or at least collaborate, so you're not carrying the load, right?
I've heard the response, I'd like to say yes, but what I would need.
Oh, good one. That's a good one.
It's a good way to accept a job too. By the way.
What other questions do you have? Those are good questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Antoinette Atkins and I'm a first year MBA student. And in regards to management, how do you build meaningful relationships if you work on multiple teams? So I'm a contractor, and so I don't get to just stay on one team and gain that insight and have that impact the way that I would usually do, like if I was working for an organization or a business. So what is some advice that you could give me to grow my leadership skills and my interactions with like different organizations and companies, knowing that like I know that I'll be working on teams short term, and sometimes within that it can be chaotic, right? Like you're coming into an organization where there's a lot of issues that you cannot solve, or maybe I have a significant impact on one team, but I know that I'm only going to be there for 6 months, right? So like, what is some advice that you guys have based off of your experience?
And are you working in person or virtually or both?
I never thought, but I don't want to overtake. My thought would be like, I've worked with a lot of contractors too. They come in with either the state or the city or whatnot, and they're very short term in duration. Some are longer depending on the needs and the project management of it. And then I don't know if this is something that you could do or not. So food for thought. Is afterwards, yes, your time with them has come to an end and you've given it back to them and you've moved on to your next contract or your next gig or whatever it is that you're doing, and you've ended with them, you're on somebody else. Could you reconnect with them some way over coffee or just virtually or LinkedIn or whatnot and say, hey, I was working on this program with you or this project with you. I know the contract ended, but I'd really like to know how that ended. How did that change? Did you have to just circle back, or what were some lessons learned, or just, I'd like to get some feedback on how did that work for you, and then engage that conversation. Now you have taken it from a business contract into kind of a personal connection to them. Now you're building that relationship, but it's all kind of based around you providing a service to them. And now you're going to ask them to provide a service to you by engaging with you and feedback in which you can learn and grow from.
I really like that.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
And while you're engaged, and maybe you already do this, but make a commitment to say, I'm going to take somebody out for coffee once a week. And just pick a different person and just take the opportunity to do that little bit of personal getting to know. And if it's your thing that you do, it doesn't feel so weird. And if you promised yourself, I'm going to do this once a week, and people begin to know that's how you operate, that's how you get connected to people, they'll actually start hearing other people got invited and want to be next on the list. And so that could be a really simple, valuable strategy.
Yeah. And start that while you're in the contract.
Absolutely, that's what I meant, like
So
start
that
that.
you can keep it
Get
going
there.
afterwards. Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I could keep talking to you all forever. I wish
Not
you,
necessary. I swear.
I wish you all the very best of luck. I know you're gonna have a great time here and be very successful. Keep in touch. We just invited you. You can make those creepy invites to us on LinkedIn.
And I seem to be seeing you all around here, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Press that.